Okay, so today what we're going to be working on is factoring by the greatest common factor. So I would like you to put me on pause, do the try list. The try list is list the factors of the numbers below. So remember, a factor is just taking, let's say, a number and putting it in a multiplication form. Okay, so put me on pause and then come back and check your answers. Okay, so for the first number we have is 10. So what numbers multiply to give you 10? So one set of factors would be 1 and 10, because 1 times 10 is equal to 10. Another set of factors would be 2 and 5, because 2 times 5 is 10. All right, let's talk about 40. There's more than 2. All right, so we have 1 times 40, so that would be 1 and 40. 2 and 20, right? 2 times 20 is 40. 3 does not go into 40. 4 times 10, that's 40. 5 times 8 is 40. 6 does not go into 40. 7 does not go into 40. And then we're back to 8 goes into 40, but we already have 8 times 5, so I don't need to write it again. So then I could stop. All right, so you can see 40 has many factors. It has 4 sets of factors that give us 40. All right, so now let's talk about the greatest common factor. The greatest common factor, which is also called GCF. So when you're given numbers, it is the largest number that divides into the given numbers. So find the GCF between these two numbers here. So the first one is 36 and 30. So what is the largest number that goes into 36 and 30? So for the first one, I'm just going to write down the factors of 36. So the factors of 36 are 1. So 1 times 36, right? So we have 1, 2. That's 2 times 12 is 36. I'm sorry, 2 times 18. And then we have 3 times 12. Then we have 4 times 9. 6 times 6. And then we have the 9, right, with the 4. And then we have the 18 times 2 and the 36 times 1. All right, so now what are the factors of 30? So the factors of 30 are 1 and 30. That gives us 30. 2 times 15. 3 times 10. 4 does not go into it. 5 times 6. And then we have 3 times the 10. 2 times the 15, and then the 1 times 30. So what would be the largest number that goes into 30 and 36? That would be the 6. So the GCF is 6. All right, so I want you to try 2. Try to do it without making the list. Just try to say to yourself, all right, what is the largest number that goes into 50 and 70? So put me on pause and then come back and check your answer. Okay, so the largest number that divides into 50 and 70 is 10. So the GCF for 50 and 70 is 10. Sorry, let me rewrite that. So the GCF is 10. All right, so now let's talk about when we have variables. All right, so when you're finding the GCF variables, simply take the one with the smaller exponent. Remember, all terms must have the same variable in order for there to be a GCF. All right, so let's take a look at the first one. We have x. We have x squared and x. Now remember, since I have an x with no exponent, that exponent really is a 1 there. So which one has the smaller exponent, x squared or x? That's this one. So the GCF is just x. So the GCF is x. All right, let's take a look at 2. We have x to the 4th, y to the 7th, sorry. So remember, it's always the one with the smaller exponent. That would be y to the 4th. So y to the 4th, so the GCF is y to the 4th. All right, so I'd like you to put me on pause and do number 3. Okay, so number 3, we have x to the second, y to the fifth, x to the fourth, y to the sixth. So let's start with the x's. We have x to the second and x to the fourth. So x to the second is the smaller. So the GCF would be x to the second. And then we have y to the fifth and y to the sixth. It would be y to the fifth. So that would be my GCF, x to the second and y to the fifth. All right, so now let's put numbers and variables together. So we're going to find the GCF, and I have a couple of problems here. So let's take a look at number 1. We have 10m squared and 15m to the third. So start with just the numbers. What's the largest number that goes into 10 and 15? So what do you think? So that would be 5. And then I have m squared and m to the third. Smaller one is m squared. So my GCF is 5m squared. Number 2, 18x to the third, 27x to the fifth. So what's the largest number that divides into 18 and 27? What do you think? So that would be 9, right? 9 times 2, and then 9 times 3 is 27. X to the third, x to the fifth, that would be x to the third. So my GCF is 9x to the third. All right, number 3, we have 8x, negative 11x squared, 16x to the third. All right, so let's start with 8, negative 11, and 16. So 8 goes into 8 and 16, but 8 does not go into 11. 11 is a prime number. So the only numbers that divide into 11 are 11 and 1. Right? So 11 does not divide into 8 and 16. So really your GCF is 1. But we don't need to actually put down the 1 if we don't want to. But we can if we want to. So the GCF is 1. And then I have an x to the first, an x squared, and an x to the third. So my GCF would be x. All right, so let's take a look at 4. 12x to the fourth, y to the third, z. 32x to the third, y. And negative 24x squared, y squared. So let's start with 12, 32, and 20, negative 24. What's the largest number that goes into all 3 of those? That would be 4. And then we have an x to the fourth, an x to the third, and an x squared. So it would be x squared. I have a y to the third, a y, and a y squared, so it would just be y. Now notice this term here has a z, but none of these have a z, so you can't put z down here. Z is not part of the GCF. It's not common to all 3 terms. All right, so now how do we factor? All right, so let's just move this stuff up here. All right, so when we factor by GCF, remember, when we factor, we're putting something in a multiplication form. So when we factor, first thing you're going to do is find the GCF and then set up the problem as, find the GCF, and then you're going to set up the problem as the GCF goes on the outside of 1 parentheses. And then you're going to take each term in the expression, divide by the GCF, and then that goes inside the parentheses. So let's take a look at the first one. I have 3x plus 6. So what's the GCF? Notice both terms do not have an x. So I'm only going to have a number. So the GCF is 3. So I'm going to put 3 on the outside of parentheses and then divide everything by 3. That goes on the inside. So what's 3x divided by 3? Remember the 3's, anything divided by itself is 1. So I'm left with just x. And then I have 6 divided by 3, that is 2. So it's x plus 2. Now look what happens. If I multiply this back, 3 times x, what do I get? 3x. 3 times 2, 6. You should always get back what you started with. All right, let's take a look at number 2. 2x squared plus 8x. Start with the numbers, 2 and 8. What's the largest number that goes into 2 and 8? That is 2. And then I have an x and an x squared. So remember, it's always the one with the smallest exponent. So that's 2x is the GCF. divide by 2x. So 2 and 2 reduce to 1 and 1. So I have x squared divided by x is just x. 8 divided by 2 is 4. And then x and x would reduce to 1 and 1. So it would be plus 4. And notice that if I distribute the 2x back, right, if I distribute the 2x back, I would get 2x squared plus 8x. All right, let's take a look at number 3. X squared minus x. So the GCF would be just x. So put x on the outside. Everybody divide by x. So x squared divided by x is x. Now this is a common mistake right here. This x divided by x, because everybody remember, and I do it too, everyone just goes like this, crosses out, so there's nothing left. So remember, it's not nothing is left. They don't cancel. They divide by each other. Anything divided by itself is equal to 1. So we get x minus 1. And remember, when we multiply back, we would get back that one single x. All right, let's try number 4. 4x squared minus 8x plus 6. What's the GCF? So the GCF is 2. No variable because they all don't have an x. So it's 2 times. Now divide everything by 2. 4x squared divided by 2 would be 2x squared. 8x divided by 2 would be 4x. And then 6 divided by 2 would be 3. Let's take a look at number 5. X to the third plus 3x squared minus 2x. So what's the GCF? GCF is just x. So x goes on the outside. Now divide by x. X to the third divided by x is x squared. 3x squared divided by x is 3x. And negative 2x divided by x would be minus 2. All right, let's take a look at number 6. All right, so I have 10 x to the third y squared plus 15x squared y to the fourth minus 5x squared y squared. So let's write down the GCF. So GCF. So what number goes into, what's the largest number that goes into 10, 15, and 5? That's 5. We have an x to the third, an x squared, and another x squared, so that would be x squared. We have a y squared, y to the fourth, and a y squared, so that would be y squared. So let's put that right here. 5x squared, y squared, parentheses. Divide everything by 5x squared, y squared. All right, so we have 10 divided by 5 is 2. X to the third divided by x squared. So I'm right here. I did 10 divided by 5 is 2. X to the third divided by x squared is just x. And then we have y squared divided by y squared is 1. Next, we have 15 divided by 5 is 3. Y squared divided by y squared is 1. X squared divided by x squared is 1, sorry. Y to the fourth divided by y squared is y squared. Now notice what we have here. Same exact thing, top and bottom, right? Anything divided by itself is equal to 1, and don't forget that that's a minus. So that's minus 1. Okay, so that's it, and we'll practice in class. Everybody have a good day and a good night.